and something about the margin of the story.
Z mężem jesteśmy na wspaniałym fińskim statku obsługiwanym przez Rosjan.
Who made that joke? Did you read the article over there? Howling tourists kill 7 penguins? I wanted to pick it up.
That's the beginning of the trip.
No. Howling tourists kill 7 penguins.
Kill 7 penguins.
Tiny pink creature, which we may be lucky enough to see in swarms as we go past, but probably we won't see them. But they're out there, countless swarms, sometimes miles across. There's always one, isn't there? Okay, now I'm going to swing certain slides and I'll close this door just so that you can see what's happening. Yeah, okay, that works. And if any of you...
Hello. I don't know if I'm going to do
Get this city. And now, after the new Baltic states get their independence, Kaliningrad and area around doesn't connect with the rest of Russia. It's like enclave or an island. We have Poland from one side, Lithuanian border from another side, and Baltic Sea. For us, for citizens there, the height is 18 meters. The draft underwater unit 6 meters. We have 2 main engines. It's diesels, French design, PLC company, but made in Russia. Each main engine has 3,500 horsepower. It means 7,000 in total. We have 2 main propellers with variable pitch of propellers. Maximum speed we can reach with 2 main engines, 15 knots. 1 knot it's 1 nautical mile per hour for your information, and 1 nautical mile is 1,852 meters, point some centimeters and millimeters. I don't remember exactly. But the ship speed depends on weather conditions, you understand, wind speed, wind direction, and also depends on currents in the ocean. And I don't know why, but our experience shows that always on the way back at home, our ship running much quicker. I don't know why, but it's really true. Our record was 19 knots when we crossed Atlantic from Bahamas to Europe. Our maximum speed once was 19 knots, but only because of we picked up Gulf Stream for a few hours. But it's true, you see. We have 18 scientific laboratories on board. Mainly the laboratory is empty now. If you go in the office, you can see how they look like, our laboratories. Because we try to use our scientific equipment on board of other vessels which still continue researches. But some equipment not possible to move out. We have here on board, for instance, few echo sonders. Some of them very interesting, I tell you briefly. One is multi-beam system. It's Finnish design echo sonder. We can get 3-dimensional picture of ocean bottom. It's very interesting. Another one is German design, Group Atlas Electronic company, with the name Parasound. It is possible to have a look not only at the ocean bottom, it is possible to look under the bottom. 50-70 meters under the bottom, we have possibility to record the ocean bottom structure. It's a very interesting system. We still have on board. When our ship first time visited Antarctica, and captain didn't have experience to be there, and as you know, many charts still have many white spots on the charts. We use all our echo sonders when we get closer to the islands, close to the peninsula, because some echo sonders give us possibility to have in forward of ship 2-3 kilometers in forward, and we can realize underwater rocks and other things. Now we have our own charts for Antarctica, and we can use 2 engines full speed when we're sailing down in Antarctica. Sometimes after the end of season we make repositioning trip from Ushuaia up to Bahamas with passengers as well. It takes 38 days. We take the way Pacific coast of Chile, Peru, Costa Rica, Panama Canal, then Mexico, Guatemala, and Bahamas. Very interesting trip. Everybody as passengers and crew, they enjoy this trip. But this season, it's, you know, tomorrow we arrive in Ushuaia, and after your departure, we also leave Ushuaia tomorrow night, and we'll proceed to Germany, Cuxhaven, without passengers. Then for summertime, we don't know exactly our plans, probably a few.
Yeah? Oh, thanks so much.
Anyone for a swim? Private swimming pool?
A bit more vodka before I go swimming.
Oh! Antifreeze!
They may have gone down for a little bit.
Look at that.
How many minutes under the water?
Maybe too small, he's up already. Watch out and...
of getting these different engines. We call some water to see what happens. Which volume of that is before we can see it.
That is getting off the plane. It has nothing to do with you. Don't want to be associated. Yeah. Say that again. 32.
What?
Yeah, well.
What?
32 or what?
Let's stop here and wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen, for fuel change. Then we will do a dash for the summit, as they say. Now exactly there.
Yeah.
This is the crater in here,
Yes.
and there's the supplementary cone in the middle, and that over there is that plug which is coming out there. And that is the old centre of the volcano. It got blocked up like a champagne cork. This outside crater collapsed inwards, and then the other small crater started growing inside. It's an active volcano. It's a very good example of one. And this here plateau there, which we walked over, that's horizontal basalt, and this is the basalt that's cut through the horizontal basalt. So it's all good stuff. If anybody wants one, I'll give you a copy of it. I don't know, to tell you the truth. I can find out. Who's got eyes that can see? Let's say about height.
70 meters.
200, huh? There you are, 100. Is that 100? 100. Well, these are dikes.
Rock. Well,
These
in front of
things that are sticking
scenery.
out are vertical curtains of basalt at intervals, and the rock between them is more weak, therefore it's been eroded away. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a big hand, please. Come on! Well done. Round here, ladies and gentlemen. Come round here. Hold your stick out. Stick together, stay in a scrum.
Who's got my camera?
So you cut off the train. That's cut the supplies off. Then you want to play.
Who's the one that fell?
Nobody fell. Did you get it?
What?
Did you get it on
I
film?
think so. I didn't see one because I was looking at the monitor. I just saw somebody fall. You're lucky that he stopped.
Well, I was going to throw it back. No.
Guys, watch out.
What's happening?
What was wrong? Let's go. I'm feeling like, you know, in one of those Star Troopers, you know, Starship Trooper movies.
We'll be all right. We'll be all right. Don't stick it at it. Yeah. Okay. Those two there are just practicing having a fight.
Yeah, they keep running towards us.
You just do this. Semen
Is this
and
one molting?
aggression and everything.
Is that-
Oh yes, I think they do molt.
Oh, look at this. Hello. Parlez-vous français? Whoa. I got you on video. Be victorious. Okay. Yeah, the one that was really aggressive.
Yeah.
I got you on film.
Yeah, big bastard.
Just kidding.
So we have to go find out where they're going to do it. I guess
Oh, they're going through the penguins, man. Get out of there.
This is Husvik, where I stay. Most vegetation, something that we've been rather missing for the last or so. We have seen elephant seals, but the Antarctic Peninsula has relatively few breeding there, whereas South Georgia has many thousands breeding on its beaches. And so these large males are suckled by their mums for a month or so. The mums then leave and they come back again about this time, and the ones we've been seeing, the elephant seals we've been seeing, are almost certainly females that have weaned a pup a couple of months earlier and now back for the molt. This is a familiar picture. And these critters, when we were passing out through Neptune's Bellows last night, any of you who look about halfway to weaning, they molt into this, their first proper fur seal coat. And just occasionally you get a white one. They're not true albinos. They don't have red eyes, no, so they can reproduce and produce surprise to me. We found that outside our hut every day we had a whole load of these reindeer. These were brought here by the Norwegian whalers in the 1920s and 30s. And in fact, the conditions on South Georgia are quite similar to those in northern Norway, to their else. And this is a species which has almost certainly derived from a single pair of Chilean pintails, which must have flown by accident. All you'll see these great birds, and you'll hear them all through the night, chirruping away. Some people think they're just boring little brown ducks, but I think they're just gorgeous. These were also heavily depleted by the whalers for food, but luckily they weren't completely eliminated, and they've now come back. There's something over 2,000 pairs of them on the islands altogether. Yeah.
Are these the ducks that eat meat?
Yeah. The question was, are these the ducks that eat meat? Yeah. Feel unwell, or just want to breath of fresh air during this talk, I'm not going to be at all offended if you want to walk out. But it's probably easier to go out that way, or you can go out this way if you like. Don't sit there feeling green and horrible. It's better to go. I'm not going to be impressed if you throw up over everyone and then I'm like, don't be worried, I won't be offended. It happens all the time.
Yes, John, okay?
Impressive of all of the seabirds that you'll be seeing, this is the wandering albatross. It has a huge wingspan. Many of you will have seen it. We've had them following from dawn this morning. And they're the big seabird with essentially a white body that you'll see. We've had sometimes a handful following. These guys, as I said, they eat squid preferably. And because of their very long wings and their very efficient way of moving around, gliding, they can cover literally thousands of miles between leaving the nest and going back to it with provisions for the youngster. I'll show you a photograph of the youngsters in a minute. But it's quite common, for example, for us to find that a bird that has a nest on South Georgia, so that's east of the Falklands by 1,500 miles, will fly all the way up to the River Plate, Uruguay, stay there for a few days, and then meander back again to the nest, say a week or 10 days later. And they'll literally cover thousands of miles just to bring one crop-loaded squid back to the youngster. And they can only do that because they have this amazing power of flight, using the wind and the waves to move around. This is what they look like close up. See that wicked hook on the top of the bill here? And you may notice a little funny little hole in the top of the bill. This indicates that this is a tube nose proselyte, and all of the albatrosses, all of the shearwaters I'll be talking about, all of the petrels, they all are, they're all part of this family called the tube noses. And they're very distinctive. They're different as a group, they're different from the other seabirds, like gulls, for example. They're not tube noses. And we think they have these organs on the top of the bill for at least two reasons. One is to secrete salt, because they're consuming food which is laden with salt and they can't digest it. Their body can't deal with it. Like us, we don't like too much salt. So they get rid of the salt through this, it's a salt gland effectively. And the other thing is we think they can use it for smelling, because these guys wander the ocean and it's not at all obvious how they find concentrations of food. The food doesn't jump up out of the ocean at them, they have to find it. And it's quite likely that they use these tube noses to smell the food. And you'll see some other birds which have this much more accentuated. Now this is a regurgitate of a wandering albatross, just to illustrate what they feed on. One of my jobs, and the colleagues at the British Antarctic Survey where I work, is to find out what these guys eat. And this horrible collection of stuff is actually a gold mine of information. You'd be amazed how excited we can get about this. These little black things here are called squid beaks. In each squid there's an upper and a lower beak, and the exact shape and the size of that beak will tell us what the species of squid was and how big the squid was. So we can extrapolate from this horrible little black thing up to the body size and the biomass of that squid. there's a hole over here, and this pinkish thing here is actually part of fresh squid which also got thrown up. What happens is if you so much as look at an albatross sometimes, or a shearwater or a former, they just throw up. And you say, oh, thank you very much. And you collect the regurgitate in a plastic bag, and you sort through it, and this is what you get. And it's wonderful. Wandering albatrosses nest on sub-Antarctic and Antarctic islands. This is the island of South Georgia, with which I'm most familiar. They have this wonderful courtship. They mate for life. They don't start breeding until they're 8 or 10 years of age. They only breed every 2 years, can you believe, because it takes so long to produce a chick. A chick takes something like 11 months to mature and fly. And so these two birds will greet each other at the nest mound every 2 years, for perhaps 30 or 40 years. They're really endearing like this, and they have this wonderful courtship when they recognize one another. And they will normally stay married, so to speak, for their whole lives, unless they have 2 or 3 attempts at breeding which are unsuccessful, and that may result in a divorce. And then they'll each try and find a younger partner. But normally, if everything goes well, they'll stick together. Now, one of the things we need to do in our population biology work on albatrosses to see how they're doing is to find out how much they weigh. And here we have a cunningly designed weighing machine. Looks more or less like a nest, and as far as an albatross is concerned, it looks exactly like a nest. So you just put the egg on top, and the albatross just slides on top and starts incubating. And there's a little electrical cable running to my mate Robbie here, and he will read out exactly how much this bird weighs. And then they put the egg back and it goes back to normal. But they're not renowned for their intelligence, albatrosses. Here's a chick, probably 10 months after the previous photographs, and this is a near-faced chick on the right, huge great thing here, weighing many kilograms, and taking a load of food from the mother, which may have been away for days and days and days just to get that hot load of food. I mentioned to you that they're on the nest for something like 11 months, so they have to go through an Antarctic winter. Here's this little critter, almost buried in snow, but perfectly warm because they have a very thick layer of blubber, fat by this time, and a nice layer of down. So they do fine. Come on in. And then, very near to fledging time, they leave the nest and they run up and down. They have some runways. And they run up and down trying to get these ridiculously long wings to work, and they don't quite know how to control them like this. And it takes them several days to get the hang of it, and then they have a momentous first flight, and it's wonderful to see. Now the second albatross species I'll be showing to you is one that we've had following the ship today and yesterday. This stunningly beautiful creature. It's the black-browed albatross. Again, it breeds on Antarctic and sub-Antarctic islands. Very different from the previous one. It's rather smaller, and as I'll show you, it looks very different in flight. Isn't that a stunning creature? Just beautiful. This is what they look like. Notice the black band going not only across the wings, but right across the back as well. And that's where it differs substantially from the wandering albatross. On the underside, the body is white, the leading edge of the wing is black, the wing tips are black, but you have this white patch going right the way across in the middle. Again, stiff wings, you'll rarely see an albatross flap. And something that's interesting, I mentioned to you our satellite tracking work. We can tell what the weather is where they are, because if the birds stop flying, we know they've been becalmed, because albatrosses don't fly when there's no wind. So they love it in these conditions, but as soon as you get a calm, then they have to sit on the water, maybe for several days before they can continue their journey. You get a good view through binoculars, you can see this distinctive black brow from which the species got its name. They nest in dense colonies. Here again on South Georgia. In fact, the birds that we see here are very likely from this very colony, South Georgia, which is to the northeast of us now. There's a baby. So these guys can raise their youngster in considerably less than a year, and so they can make a breeding attempt every year, and they reach sexual maturity, that is, they can have their first youngster lay their first egg at something like 6 years of age, and so everything is accelerated, and they won't last as long. Their longevity is less than the wandering albatross. The third species, the grey-headed albatross, another just wickedly beautiful bird. Looks like it's made up. Look at this beautiful makeup under the eye. Ladies would be proud of that. It just takes your breath away, I think, this species. Glorious. Now they're about the same size as the previous species, the black-browed, but they're both called molymorphs. There's one particular group of albatrosses. This one, though, is distinctive because of the grey head and because of the yellow line on the top and the bottom of the bill there. But the thing to notice, if you see them flying, is the grey head. That's the thing that will strike you first of all. And they, too, nest in these dense colonies. They make these nests over a period of years. Every time they come back, they add a little bit more. So the older nests get higher and higher and higher. Now we go on to yet another type of albatross. This is called the light-mantled sooty albatross. Similarly beautiful, nice little bit of white make, in that they are also tube noses, and it's a large tube nose, very similar in size to albatrosses, and we've had some of these following the ship already today as well. I didn't see any a few minutes ago, but we had some this morning. You may have seen them, they look very dark, and just with a slightly lighter bill. Now these giant petrels vary in plumage quite dramatically. There are two races of them down here, the northern and the southern, and I think we'll only be seeing the southern giant albatross. And as I said, the ones we've seen so far are all dark, but they can be quite light, like this one here. It's not a different species. The only way to tell the species apart is by the colour of the end of the bill. And ironically, the one is red, but this is not, of course, the natural colour. In the other case, it's green. This one just had its head in a seal. So here's a bird that eats a creature, which eats a creature, which eats krill. So it doesn't directly eat krill, it eats seals, which eat squid, which eat krill. But everything essentially goes down to these little pink krill. These are effectively the vultures of the Antarctic. Now here's one that's cleaned itself up a bit. And the ones we have down here are like this, with the green nail on the end, and they're quite tame. Sometimes come right overhead like that. This was February last year. This guy examined by a young Antarctic fur seal. We should see these as well. The giant petrel's trying to decide whether it's petrel. So we're now moving down the scale of size to the next group of tube noses. They're showing you they all live below ground. They excavate burrows for safety, because the albatrosses do not. It's tussock grass. They make their burrows underneath that. In the tube noses, in this case quite short. I've been looking at this morning out here, so you can be confused, but these are significantly smaller. The petrel, this is the pintado petrel, or Cape pigeon. So these are unique. Anything you see looking remotely see it, I hope you'll see them. They're quite numerous. And pure white, this is a black bill and black feet, very dainty little bird, about that wingspan, cabbages sometimes. I've only ever seen one of these. That was above the leaf whaling stage. It looks like. Great little bird. I've been to the Antarctic prion. There are a number of species that occur around the Antarctic. They're all very similar, surprisingly similar, to the species. The you get broad-billed prions and thin-billed prions and all sorts of prions, and often it's only when tube noses. This is one of the largest and most obvious, the great skewer. They're renowned in the British Isles for taking the eyes out of lambs, newly born lambs, so the farmers has caught a prion at its nesting burrow. Here's the burrow that the prion was going into, and little bird, very dainty. You're probably familiar with terns elsewhere, wherever you happen to live. A species that we may be lucky enough to see down here is the Arctic tern, which is, and the only shag that we're likely to see down here is the imperial shag. That's what the ovaries look like. I don't know what they're doing with their ovaries on their big, no, kidding. I don't know why, I just find that attractive, this yellow sheep bill. Another one that makes its living from picking up scraps. They stand about so high. We can expect to see, and of course I've hardly mentioned the penguins. In contrast, although there are numerically, and the largest of these is the southern elephant seal, of which this is an adult male, they may get up to 5 meters, maybe a little bit more than that, to weigh 5, 6, 7 tons. They're absolutely huge. And you've got a proboscis in the adult males, that's why they're called elephant seals. Now, in this species, more than any other seal, something called sexual dimorphism is apparent. That is, where the sexes differ from one another in appearance. And it's obvious here. This is a fully adult female. This is her newly born pup. And this is an amorous male. And just look at the size. This is only his head and shoulders. And they are absolutely huge. Something like 10 times the body weight of the female. And of course, the reason is that they compete with one another for access to harems. So a really good bull master will, and they have a relatively short lifespan as a dominant male. Not many years to go on to the next generation. And you can see a whole load of skewers up here waiting for afterbirth or have pulled out for molt. They have a synchronous molt like most seals, and they like to be out of the water when they're molting. Just use your common sense. For those of you who can run like hell, you can get a bit closer. Those of you who can't, right, waiting for this molt to finish. When it's hot, they like to get in these muddy hollows, and if you get too close, they'll let you know by. One of the things I found fascinating looking at these, many have fantastic diving capability. They can hold their breath for nearly 2 hours when they need to. And so you can be still there, but that'll soon be gone, be back off to sea. That's the only data slide I've got in my talk today. Is my laboratory in Cambridge have developed some little devices to stick on the back of seals and whales, which will tell us altitude. We found that they can dive a mile down, more than 1,500 meters. It's the maximum depth, open way. This is a leopard seal. Those of you who've seen David Attenborough's series Life in the Freezer may remember a beautiful secret. The head is, in relation to the size of the body, the head is huge and the gape is enormous. And they typically was a whale seal, another ice-breathing seal. This and the previous species and the next one are quite closely related species. And you can approach them without too much involved, then they're there for a good reason. So in principle, you shouldn't move a seal, shouldn't get so close as it is. Its teeth are almost like a sieve. When the jaw is closed, the teeth, the seal, which is very different. This is the only eared seal that we're likely to see. Notice the external ear. See them in the sea, they're often porpoising like this. They have this fabulous way of getting around. They look like differential that we see in the elephant seal. One. Notice the pectoral fins, eared seals. Here's a weaned pup, probably bite. And we had a guy last year who had to be medevaced out of South Georgia by helicopter because he got a little nick on his lost arm for 2 or 3 weeks. They are very charming, sweet animals. And just to finish off with, I know some of you like to find rarities. Well, here's one. But for those of you...
Weddell seals and things on there.
I see something else that they were going to look at. Yeah, as long as it's no weddell.
I'm sorry.
That's alright. This is... There's nothing obvious markings or... That's upside down. They're not getting up.
Margaret. Get it? We'll have a look from the other side in a minute. We'll have a look from the other side in a minute. Is that us?
Go like this with the boat, because if I try to sit sideways, so you all have a good view, you just blow away. So it's easier for me to do it like this.
You'll get just as fast as I would.
I'm smiling.
He's smiling. Yeah, we can see that.
Okay.
Okay, done everybody? Have a look on the other side.
Yeah, roll over. Hello, how are you? Oh, sorry. Is that a weather? A wet seal. Right.
You gonna take a photo of it?
Well, I've got all this guy. You take the photo. I've got this. Come on. Put your head up. Był tu wieloryb?
Gdzie?
Zaraz. Jest. Ach.
Leslie, how about the other one? Oh, they're the most elusive things.
Yes, get them just when they're out of the water.
When they're young. Yeah, that's what all those scars are on the
Yeah, I saw some scars.
on the crab-eater seals. They're having a go at them when they're young.
Elżbieta.
Te góry popatrz.
Colegio francés.
Colegio francés, sí. ¿En qué lugar de Francia? Good place in French. ¿En what place?
En un colegio francés. En Polonia.
Ah, en Polonia.
Claro. Un colegio francés.
Ok.
A ver, la señora allá. A ver, la chica. Whisky. Sangría. Posible necesario sonrisa. Oh, bueno. Bella chica. ¿Algo? Oh, qué linda, mirá vos. Hermosa aquella. ¿Y aquel? Oh, sí, aquel está saludando. Chao, chao. ¿Bien? Champán. Champán, ¿no? Sí, ¿no? Sí. Champán y...